This is the Team Objection podcast for December 19th, 2019, episode 418, our essentially last episode of the year, because we were taking off the week of Christmas to get that programming note out of the way early. Nothing coming next week on the YouTube channel or here. So the next time you see us, we'll either be reviewing Star Wars or the best video games and the like for 2019.
And then the best of the decade episode. There's so much to look forward to if you even moderately enjoy this show.
Yeah. They should be fun episodes. We should have a lot to talk about. Maybe Dave will show up. Who the hell knows, really? It's hard to say. But we're here. The two of us are here. And with or without Dave, we're still going to do a Sunscast.
Sunscast! Boom, 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 boom. I heard that in my workout today. Like that old
Sirius
like,
from
NBA.
Alan Parsons Project? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good song.
Oh, yeah.
I still have it on my list, even though I skip it a lot when it comes up. So, whoops. Bad Suns fan, I guess. We're here to talk about the Suns. The last time we did this, they were 5-2. Could have been 7-0. We had joked about how we were going to do one if they were either 7-0 or 0-7 because we'd have so much to say. Well, they were close. And since then, some things have happened, and most of them have not been great.
Yeah, it bothers me when I talk like with the casual fan. Like, oh, yeah, the Suns, like, they're doing pretty good this year, right? And I'm like, yeah, if you count the first 10 games, they were off to a great start.
Yeah, the Associated Press story mentioned how they were talking about Ayton's return, which happened last night. We're recording this as of Wednesday. And they said, the surprisingly competitive Suns, and I'm like, that's a backhanded shot. And then I thought to myself, no, these are the same idiots who thought the Rubio signing was bad, so they expected nothing from us. And being 11-16 or 11-15 is like, whoa, they're so good. Whoa, cool.
Yeah. And then I take that as like surprisingly competitive. Yeah, maybe in the beginning, even though I think that's rude. But lately, I mean, we've lost 12 of the last 16 games or something in that vicinity.
Mm-hmm.
That's garbage. Here's my issue, Chris, and you know this. This is going to be an interesting take. So I am usually the optimist. I am feeling very negative.
Yeah, we're going to be taking very opposite approaches this time, and I think it's fascinating. I don't think either one of us is going to be totally wrong either.
Yeah, Chris usually, well, you're usually just a realist. So that's like,
which has meant being a pessimist the last 10 years because they've been garbage. So if you're a realist, they're garbage.
So the other night, so we lose to the Clippers, and I'm like, you know what? That's fine. We get blown out. That's a little unfortunate, but I get it. Second game of back-to-back, no Booker.
Everybody played, too. Lou Williams was questionable. He played like 30 minutes. Pat Beverly was questionable. He started, played good defense. They were missing almost nobody. I think JaMychal Green didn't play, a.k.a. who cares?
Yeah. Second night of a back-to-back, no Booker. Ayton's first game back. He played well in, 24 minutes. He got 18 rebounds, 18 points, 12 rebounds.
Yeah, and a block. Good shooting. Looked nimble out there. Didn't tire out too much. Not a huge game, but I don't know who expected him to have a huge one other than the most realistic. No, I'm just kidding. The most crazy people.
Yeah, I read some comments. You mentioned this in a separate comment I read. I was really hoping for 30-15 tonight. And it's like, while we're hoping, why stop at 30-15? Why not go 50-40?
Yeah, Wilt's number is 100. Why not break that?
Yeah, if we're just hoping for unrealistic bullshit, like why limit ourselves?
Let's get a triple-double, too. Doncic is doing it, so why not Ayton?
Yeah. And I get it. It stings that Doncic is playing so well. We got to get over that at some point. I am guilty of it myself. It's hard not to see him playing and be like, we actually could have done that. But it's okay. We have Ayton. He played well.
Yep. And it's nice to have him back after the 25-game suspension.
Yeah, he has to build some chemistry with Rubio. And they're probably going to have some because they've been able to practice together. But game speed and practice speed are two different things.
Yep. Same thing with his conditioning. He looked like he was in decent shape last night. Monty only kept him out there for about 7-minute stretches in each quarter, which is probably about right. And that's also going to have to come with time. Again, he was traveling with the team, working out with the team. He just had to be out of the arena within 2 hours of tip-off. But none of that prepares you for the speed and intensity and differing schemes of the NBA game. So some of that's going to take some time, too.
So Zion's going to come back from injury. He's going to be at 0 speed. He's going to be...
He might not even play this year.
I know. Well, that's a whole separate thing. I was hearing that today. Whenever he does come back, it's going to be starting at the bottom. Ayton is coming back at 50%. Even though he's been able to practice. It's because he's been able to practice. He's 50%.
Yeah.
Give him a little bit of time to get to 100%.
This is not the same thing because it was an injury and not a suspension, but look how long it took Gordon Hayward
Yeah, right.
Now, he had a catastrophic injury. I'm not trying to say they're the same thing, but people were like, all of last season, he was back, and people go, well, what happened? He doesn't look like himself. It took him more than a season to get back to conditioning, to reading NBA defenses, to all these things. Ayton's a much smaller version of that, but the fact remains you cannot completely replicate NBA action.
Yeah, I mean, there's even just like a comfort level. Like, aside from everything else, kind of building that confidence again.
Yeah.
Dealing with all the expectations of our insane fan base. Like, I get it. Give him some time. He's never going to be... he's probably never going to be Doncic, and that's okay. He could be really, really, really good. Just you got to give him some time.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have to concede that maybe that wasn't the right pick, but given the situation and where they were picking, I don't know if they had a choice.
It's hard not to go with that one. I know that I would have felt gutted that night listening to the draft if we had not gone with Ayton. I would have been like, well, there we go. Just another example of why this franchise sucks.
Yeah.
Hindsight's 2020, but
nobody thought Doncic would be this good. Even
Yeah.
his most bullish supporters could not have envisioned like 40-point triple doubles.
Well, Dragic was like his fanboy was saying he's going to be the next big thing. He's going to be great. Just watch. And then they just interviewed him. He's like, honestly, I'm his biggest fan. I didn't know he's going to be this. He's putting up he's like, dare I say it, like Michael Jordan numbers. Like, it's crazy.
And he made a big leap. If his ceiling had been what he was last season, which was still good, you would have been like, okay, I could see Ayton surpassing that. And maybe Ayton still takes another step too. I don't know if that's not like written in stone yet. But the fact remains that because he really leaned down, I mean, Doncic lost 50 pounds. Or 15 between last year and this year, and you can tell he's moving more quickly. His defense still isn't great, but offensively he can do anything he wants.
Yeah, right.
So,
but at the same time, he made a big leap. Like, let's see if Ayton can make a big leap in an actual adequate sample size of games.
Yeah, because he played one game before the suspension, and he played pretty well in that one game. But now we haven't seen him for 25.
Did he score 18 in that game too?
Yeah, he had 18 points, 11 boards, 4 blocks.
Yeah,
the opener against the
I hate
Kings.
how consistent he is. It's like he's doing great. Like I would love. Do you know how many games? And I know it's not this simple always, but if you had added 18 and 12 to like the stat line, well,
look at Frank Kaminsky, who I thought played pretty well in Ayton's absence and was asked to do more than he probably should have been. He's a turnstile defensively and even offensively. Some nights he'll give you 4 points, some nights he'll give you 20. That was the biggest showcase of what Ayton does and why that dependability matters. Because you know almost every night what you're going to get out of Ayton.
Yeah.
16 to 20 points, 10 to 14 boards, blocked shot or two, decent effort defensively. You know every night he delivers. Kaminsky's all over the map. And sometimes that costs you because you're like, oh, well, he had a good night last night, so he's going to have played well today, and he disappears, and you go, oh, shit, like we were depending on that.
And also, like, you can't just look at numbers because the gravity of Ayton is a lot more than the gravity that Kaminsky demands from the defense. So if Ayton is getting 18 and 12, but it's drawing in defenses, they're having to sink off the perimeter, for example, it's a lot different than Kaminsky, where I almost think some teams are like, well, let him. He can score. If they want to make Kaminsky their scorer, that's fine, and we'll win this game.
Yeah.
So, let's see what he actually does with a healthy Booker and a Rubio, who I think is playing better than a lot of us expected.
Yeah. About as well as I'd hoped.
Yeah.
And not too many complaints so far. I know people are a little bit frustrated with his shooting sometimes, and I don't know why. He came in as advertised. He's a 32% career three-point shooter. He's shooting like 32% this year from three. It's just he can't shoot. I don't know why. He makes like 84% of his free throws, and even those are such a weird like line drive trajectory.
Yeah.
But at least he's found something that works there. Dude just can't shoot, but he's been excellent at running the offense, and boy, is that a sight for sore eyes.
Yeah, I mean, we're so starved for any sort of real NBA offense. And look at what a difference you see. So when Tyler Johnson, like, us not being able to buy a backup point guard, that was our team last year. So us deciding who's going to back up Rubio, Okobo or Tyler Johnson or Ty Jerome, none of whom are really doing great, to horrible. That was the whole team last year. We had nobody.
Yep. You're choosing between terrible choices, whereas at least this year, okay, 32 minutes are locked up. What are we going to do for the other 16? Yeah. Interestingly enough, because you didn't see the game, but They ran a lineup in both the second and fourth quarters that was Carter and Akobo and Jerome at the same time.
Was that as much of a dumpster fire as I would imagine it was?
It wasn't phenomenal, but that's also because the Clippers bench is really good since they hide Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell on it.
Oh, yeah, right.
It wasn't awful. I think it was, if anything, just a chance to kind of showcase all three of them and see if any of them stood out. And they also were kind of thin on the wings with no Cam Johnson or Booker last night. They didn't have a huge choice either. It wasn't great. Carter in particular was passing up shots in the offense he's supposed to be taking, but it showcased like all three of them have their pluses. But like you mentioned, it used to be we were depending on those narrow little pluses and a sea of negatives. And now at least the damage is minimized because we have an NBA caliber starting point guard and the rest is just, well, hope somebody's decent.
Well, okay, so I have to ask now. I don't know if this is a cause and effect thing of now that we're actually competitive in games, fans care more about officiating, and so we're hearing more about it. But like lately, it seemed really, really bad. I think we got kind of the benefit in one game, and then like in the 5 games surrounding it, it has just been atrocious. You never want to say officiating has cost you the game. You put yourself in those positions, but like in a couple instances, it's come about as close to that being true as possible.
Well, on a 1 or 2 point loss, every single mistake you can point to technically has game-changing ramifications, and that can come down to every single possession where you didn't necessarily execute the way you wanted, but it also comes down to bad calls. I think it's both. I think there is some extent of just fans paying attention because who cares if a call goes against you when you're down 30?
Yeah, right.
Like, okay, sure, fine, like, woe is us. And now when it matters, everything becomes magnified. But there have been some objectively terrible calls in the last couple of weeks, and not even just in the Suns games. I don't know what's happened. I don't know if this challenge rule has made it more spotlighted because now there are more calls in a game that we're looking at and reviewing. I think it's a combination of things, but it's not a great look for NBA officiating.
No, it's like, it's horrible. And that was going to be my question is this a Suns thing where because we've been so bad, we don't have the respect? And honestly, there's an element where we need to earn it, although you can also argue refs should just be reffing the game. It shouldn't have to do with respect or stars or not stars, just objectively, was that a foul or not? Or is this just a kind of a widespread thing? And it sounds like it is almost be worse if it was just the league doesn't have good refs, and it's killing the NFL too.
Yeah, this challenge system is not helping, both in that regard and just in game flow in general. And I know it was just introduced and they can always tweak it, but the idea of challenging and not getting to keep your challenge, I don't get it. Because you're not incentivized to challenge anything in the first half or so, because what if you need it for something critical down the stretch? You've already used it and now you can't.
Yeah.
Losing the timeout if you fail the challenge is fine. It's similar to the NFL, and there should be something punitive so you can't just challenge willy-nilly. But now what we're seeing is a call in the second quarter that shouldn't really get much scrutiny, sometimes will. If it's like a third foul on a star and the coach wants to keep them out of foul trouble going into halftime, we're going to spend 3 minutes reviewing this questionable call. And at the end of the day, at NBA speeds, you can argue there could be an infraction on every single possession.
Yeah, right.
So the more we have to bring up reviews and scrutinize every single possession, the more the subjectivity of referee calls is going to get called into question.
And then, you blow it on something that maybe could have gone either way, but you were feeling pretty good. And then you miss when Baines has that tip in, like 2 inches off the rim, called for offensive interference. And you're like, what?
And then they missed an offensive interference on the other end in the same quarter, I think, or
thereabouts. Took it right off the rim.
Yeah. And it's like, obviously, fans always remember the calls that go against them much more than the ones that were in their favor. But to me, there's little doubt that we got screwed more than we were benefited in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Not enough to change our record a ton, but a couple of those games were, again, really, really close, 1 or 2 point losses.
And I don't really get it. We don't have the Morai, the like piece of shit like brothers. Like we don't seem to argue that much league. Referencing the entire league. So like, why?
Well, there was that call. I don't remember who it was against now because they're blurring together for me. But in that game, with a couple minutes left, that eventually went to overtime where we rallied and forced OT and then lost at the last second. The one where we kept having hope raised up and then smashed.
Oh, yeah.
With about 2 minutes left, there's a play where the ball goes out of bounds. It's off of the other team's fingertips. And Ricky Rubio, of all people, is arguing. Ricky Rubio! He never questions anything. The dude doesn't argue over like almost anything.
So he gets a T.
He gets a T.
And then Booker gets a T
Yeah.
for...
So
again, stepping
the
on
refs
the court.
made a mistake. then teed up a player who almost never argues, who is trying to plead with them to reverse their mistake, then teed up somebody for stepping off the bench because they made a bad mistake and compounded it with another mistake. And that's the stuff as refs that cannot happen. Forget the Suns' bias and all this. You cannot punish a team multiple times because of human error you make.
Yeah.
You may not be able to reverse the call at that point, especially once it's outside the challenge window. You might just have to be like, look, that's on us. I missed it. I blew it. If you know you blew the call, then you should be at least not teeing people up when they argue for it. And if you don't know you blew the call, then review the fucking thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all.
And that's what hurts. I mean, and it's going to, the season, I mean, who knows? We could lose every fucking game for the rest of the season, and it doesn't matter. But this season could come down to 1 or 2 games. And you look back, and you have a 1-point loss to Portland. You have a 2-point loss in overtime to the Spurs. I think it was 2 points. It was overtime
and that was
for
the
sure.
game, yeah.
And it's like, these are games that it's costing.
Yeah, and those are games against teams that are right in that morass of like 7 to 11 where they're all below 500 but fighting for a playoff spot. And it's way too early to talk about any of this stuff, but the fact remains, if the season ended today, that game would cost the Suns the 8th seed.
Yeah.
That one game is the difference right now between 9 and 8. So that's not going to matter at the end of the 82-game season in the big scheme of things, but like you said, that one game could still make a difference at the end of the year too.
Yeah. Now, so the officiating bothers me. Games that we lose where we're competitive, that's fine. Games that we lose where it's like, why is this team like Portland sucks? They are awful. They're trash. And, you know, maybe I'm biased. This could be. It could be that I'm just biased. But when I was watching the Suns last year, eye test, we were god awful. We were trash, right?
Yeah.
This year, eye test, we were the better team compared to Portland. Like, we go down, we have this beautiful assist, like hockey assist to a dunk. Portland comes down, jacks up a bad 3, and it goes in. And it's like, we were the better team, and we lost. And I'm like, why? Is it we don't have the energy? What happened to that?
That's okay. My big talking point comes up right here.
Great.
Remember in the preview when I didn't do a very good job articulating the difference between floor and ceiling?
Yes.
This is what's killing us. We raised our floor a lot. This is sort of what I was referring to back then. We raised our floor. We have a lot more NBA caliber players on the roster, and the result is on any given night, we pretty much know we look like we know what we're doing out there. There's a functional offense. The defense has slipped the last few weeks, but is still at least functioning like an NBA defense and not like a tire fire. But our ceiling is not that much better. Who's the third best player on this team?
Kelly.
Probably, I would say Rubio.
Yeah, you know, you're right.
Kelly has had flashes. I'm pleased with his development. He still makes 4 or 5 head-scratching plays a game, but you can make a case for him. And in his best stretch, you can make a case for Aaron Baines. But how does that stack up against the best teams in the West? Not great. Now, there's a lot of big 2s out there whose 2s are still bigger than Booker and Ayton. But then you look at like the Clippers right now, which are a bad example. They're the second best team in the West. But the Clippers have, okay, George and Kawhi, great. But Lou Williams is better than any of the other players we've talked about besides Booker and Ayton. I don't think Rubio's better than him. Montrezl Harrell's very solid. Pat Beverly, while not great offensively, is a catalyst on the defensive end. Where is that type of player for us?
I mean, that's true, but then let's see that with Portland. You have like Lillard and McCollum. Like, okay, and then right now I know they're hurt. And I'm not. Well, once they get their players back, they'll be decent. They went to the Western Conference Finals. Right now, they're trash though. So like, who is their third best player?
Carmelo or Hassan Whiteside.
And like that's not that good.
But we played them without our 2 best players.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is what I'm
fair.
getting at though is floor rose, and that's great, and that's why it looks like every night we can actually compete and have been almost. In every game, the Clippers game was a blowout, and we got just ransacked in the 4th quarter against Denver on the road, and another second night of a back-to-back a couple weeks ago. The ceiling is what's going to kill us. And remember, too, despite all those offseason acquisitions and picking up veterans, although they were younger veterans overall, Rubio's 29, Baines is 32, everybody else is under 26, which means we're still the youngest team in the NBA. This is a team that has to learn how to close out games. They're definitely not going to know how to do it without Booker on the floor, which has happened the last 3. And they're going to have a harder time doing it without Ayton as well, I think. And even when he comes back, not that he's going to do that on his own, just learning how to play together and in this system with all the pieces in place hasn't really happened to this point. It was in the opener. And that's
Yeah.
it. Because now that Ayton's back, Booker didn't play last night.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a harsher learning curve. And that's why I'm a little more optimistic about it, or at least less pessimistic, because I look at this roster and I go, yeah, like Dario Saric is probably not going to be a go-to player down the stretch if you need somebody to clear out. And we saw with Oubre, they ran a play for him at the end of that Portland game, and he shied away from the pressure.
Yeah.
He could have pulled up and taken that 12-footer over Whiteside, which wouldn't have been a great shot, but wasn't a bad one. And instead he kicked it out to Rubio, who had to shoot a 3 with like 2 on the shot clock.
Yeah.
And that's just players needing to be in that situation to learn what it means to win in crunch time and get those reps.
I mean, that's true. And Chris has had to talk me off the ledge a few. I think it was the Portland. It wasn't even the Spurs game, which which should have bothered me more because they are also trash.
Yeah.
But it like ruins my night, and I'm like, I like think about it, I stew about it, I like get in a bad mood. And Maisie's like, hi, and I'm like, don't talk to me. And it's like I shouldn't do that because our pre-season predictions were like, we're on the way to that right now. The problem though here is I raised my expectations because of good play and like relatively sustained good play. So it's like last year where we won the first game, and I'm like, we're going to the championship. I didn't do that. But after like 10 games or more of like, wow, we're actually like pretty good, and we're good in ways that like are sustainable, or so I thought. Defensive effort and offense high in assists. And then it's like, where did that go? What happened? And I think part of it is teams know to plan for us a little bit better. But like still, it seems like the effort isn't there.
That's fine. You can probably hear Maisie dying in the background. She's being eaten by the dog. It's not a big concern. Yeah, I think you're right. And I think one of the reasons the Portland loss is more frustrating to you is because you're not thinking about it in the context of what you just said, which is how teams are adapting. At the start of the season, let's go into some basketball terminology. The hell with it. If you've stuck with it this far, you care about basketball somewhat. They've been bringing a defender who's not involved in the pick and roll from the weak side over to the nail or the free throw line to basically take away pick and roll action, to make skip passes more difficult. The byproduct of that is that angle 3 from the guy the defender is helping off of is open. Well, guess what three-pointer the Portland was making the most down the stretch with some capable three-point shooters. Now, Carmelo, okay, fine, Carmelo's kind of a dumpster fire, but he's played okay for them since he's come back. But Lillard and McCollum, who really killed us in that second half, we're getting those type of looks because that's what the defense is sort of designed to give. In the opening 10 games, opponents were only shooting like 31, 32% from 3, and that was going to regress, and it has. Unfortunately, it's come up in games that have been really close and hurt us quite a bit.
Yeah, and it kills me. And I know we don't even have like Ayton being back to help with that defensive scheme is gonna be pretty critical.
Yeah,
but. Well, and my thing is, if that's not working, if that's a simple-minded defense, like, is it just we can't go more elaborate because we don't have the personnel? Like, we kind of should. We have a young, relatively athletic team, like, unless the guys just don't get it, unless they don't understand how to play good defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was kept simple by design, especially because they were going a little more complicated on the offensive end with this, move it in 0.5, essentially, do something, shoot, pass, drive, whatever. A young team like this, especially mid-season, I don't think the chances of implementing a new defensive scheme are all that high, especially because I think casual and hardcore fans alike kind of just overestimate how many practice days teams have during a regular season. I mean, the Suns are about to have a couple. They finally have a couple days off here after a pretty rough stretch of consecutive both home and road games. But the practice days are limited.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to work in a defensive scheme in one practice? Probably not. Well, then you're going to need a stretch where you have several practices in at least pretty quick succession, and those are few and far between once the season starts, even with the more spread out schedule they have now. So at this point, I'm not sure, other than having players that can better recover after helping at the nail, because like Kaminsky shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, right.
That would help somewhat, but it's sort of who they are at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you're right. We're going to have to play like right around 500 to meet our midseason predictions. Not quite. If we were to play a 500, that would actually put us closer to 40, I think. I did the math when I was like upset that night, and now I've kind of forgotten it. But if we kind of continue on this stretch, we could finish like mid 20s to low 30 wins, which is like really disappointing. Even, and I know what we said before. That's kind of in line with what we predicted.
Yeah.
But like, it seems like we have the more potential now, even with what you said about floor and ceiling, which I also agree with.
Well, we're on pace for 33 wins right now.
Yeah.
And I predicted 34, and you or Dave predicted 35 and 36. I don't remember who was who. So we're right about where we thought we would be. The basketball has been a way more aesthetically pleasing product.
That's true. We can watch it.
Yeah. I've watched just about every game this year, or at least had it on in the background while I was working or whatever, whereas even I, who watched the most of any of us, tuned out of at least half of them. Or if I was watching the first quarter and we were down by 20, I would go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's been a lot of improvement. There are some upsides and downsides here. If I told you we'd be 11 and 16 right now at the start of the season, missing 25 games of Ayton and 4 of Devin Booker, I would have been like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, we'll take that.
Yeah. Because I wouldn't have thought Sharge would play quite this well. He's been a little better than I thought. Kaminsky filling in. Baines, better than I thought. Cam Johnson has had more of an impact than I thought he would so far. Looks like he's got some promise. Rubio's been about what we thought, maybe a little better. But overall,
Bridges, unfortunately, though,
kind of regressed.
Yeah.
So you can look at it as a positive because, I mean, no Ayton for this entire stretch, almost. And we emerged from that okay. Or you can look at it as a negative. We've played a lot of home games so far. We had a tough schedule to start, but the last few weeks in particular, like the last 2 weeks, have had some games that were much more winnable against some fringe Western Conference playoff candidates, and we've lost those. That hurts us. So, I mean, you can look at it from both sides at this point. I certainly would understand why some people might take more negative than positive out of 11 and 16 record, but to me, I'm like, yeah. I'm not thrilled. I'm not like, yeah, this is so awesome, but I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I had a taste of what it used to be like to be a Suns fan. Something that Maisie has still really never experienced.
Yeah.
Where like we go into a game and we're kind of expected to win. And for a quick bit there in this season, you know, we had beaten the Clippers. We had another strong win. We took Denver to the wire. We're like, wow, we're actually pretty good. And then we're losing to Memphis and like all these shitty teams, and it hurts. It hurts to go back down. Hope. What does Shawshank say? Like, hope is like the most dangerous thing for a man. Like, it poisons the mind. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
Essentially. And a lot of that is having to remind myself, like, during the Nash era, I expected us to win every night, which was unrealistic. I mean, even though we were talented enough to, nobody wins every night. The Warriors lost 9 times when they won 73. And most good teams lose 20 to 30 games every year. Yeah. So, I mean, everybody gets caught in trap games, in back-to-backs, with not 100% of their effort or focus against a team that they didn't think they needed it against, but absolutely did, or just getting beaten by good teams. Once I revised my expectations for that, I mean, again, a couple of these losses have been really disappointing, both Portland and San Antonio in particular, because they were right there. Even without Booker, they were right there. But I'm still just enjoying watching them. I like most of the players on the team. Occasionally I do boneheaded things, but I don't hate them as people, so I'm not like mad at them. I'm just okay with it.
Again, it's different than when we had the Morai, where I'm like, I actually hate you.
Yeah.
Like, if you always say, like, oh, that person was on my team, like, I'd like them. Well, we had those people on my team, and I hated them.
Yeah.
So my question is, Kevin Love to the Suns, is that a no, or is that a hell no?
It's a hell no.
Okay.
That's a hell no.
Man, that's like a heart versus head for me thing, because the heart is like, oh, that's a sexy trade. That's a once upon a time marquee name, but the head is like, it's a lot of money for not much more production than Saric, and you could argue maybe it's more impactful production. You could argue against that too. But I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that like I get excited when it's brought up in a rumor, even though I think it's probably a bad idea.
For the right price, I would consider it. But what does he do for us this season?
Playoffs.
Maybe. The West is more attackable than we thought, just because outside of the top 6, and Utah hasn't played great so far either. But outside of that, everybody else is below 500. So, I mean, it's in play for sure. But we don't even really know what this team looks like with Ayton right now. And we still have time between now and the trade deadline to figure that out more, and then maybe still make a play for Love. I don't know. I just worry about the injury history. I worry about the contract. If it's just like a protected first and Bridges or something thereabouts, maybe. I think they think they're going to get more than that. I think they're wrong. But
yeah, I wouldn't want to do. There was one guy who was like, well, we can. One guy, it was like The Ringer or somebody. It was like a respected outlet. was saying we have plenty to give up. First rounders, Cam Johnson, Tyler Johnson, who's kind of required for to make the salaries match.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to give up Cam Johnson for Kevin Love. Almost even like straight up, which is not possible, but like I wouldn't want to do that.
Protected first, Baines, Tyler Johnson. That's as far as I go.
I wouldn't even know if I would want to give up Baines, even though like he's not who he was at the beginning of the season.
It's not even about that to me. It's about I don't think we're going to re-sign him.
Oh, okay.
And it's either that or you put Sharch in the deal alongside because he's restricted. You're not going to pay both Sharch and Baines next year, whether you trade for Love or not.
Yeah.
You're not going to keep both with Ayton's extension looming the year after that effectively. So you could put one of those two guys in there because you're getting a big in return. You don't need to have Baines and Kaminsky and Sharich and Love and Ayton. But that's as far as I'd go. I don't even want to put Bridges into it. And that's despite his struggles. You still see these times where Bridges looks like a really nice rotation piece. Any more than that is too big a risk.
Yeah.
If it was the last piece to put us over the top, and by over the top I mean like into contention, or at least close to it, not into the 8th seed to get walloped by the Lakers, then I'd be on board. Or if he maybe only had a couple years left instead of 3, I might consider it more. But he would still have 1 year on the books when Ayton goes max, probably. With Booker already at max, that seems real bad.
In my dream scenario, we make the 6th seed, and then we have a shot to upset like Denver. You know, like it's in the realm of possibility. We get in 7 or 8, we're done. I mean, that I'll be happy if we don't get swept in that matchup. Because that's not only two very good teams, it's a bad matchup for us.
Yeah, and I've been probably the most bullish about the Lakers the last couple of years, but even I wouldn't have seen 22-3.
Yeah.
Turns out that LeBron and Anthony Davis are just really good, so even if the supporting cast is a little suspect, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
That's scary. And the Clippers we just saw last night, when they're really firing it all on all cylinders and in the playoffs where they're not going to have load management, oof. That team is frightening, defensively especially.
Yeah, I mean, we were right on that one. That's what we were saying, and
yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely true. Rockets are playing a little better than I was expecting. Still seem a bit vulnerable, but...
A bit. They haven't had a lot of Eric Gordon. He missed most of the season to this point. They could still make a deal at the trade deadline. You know how Daryl Morey loves to make deals.
Mm-hmm.
Capella's really good, but yeah, it doesn't feel like they are on that very top level. Dallas record-wise is, but I just don't think that's sustainable, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think they're really good, but that they had the same problem where it's like, okay, like Doncic, Porzingis, and who?
Well, and then I look at Dallas and it makes me sad. And it's not even just the direct comparison, but like they were where we were. Like they were awful. They had kind of they were in the sunset phase from the Dirk era. And now they're like going back up again, and we're still a bottom seller. I'm not mad at them. That's, you know what? That's great. I actually don't. They're one of the franchises I kind of like.
Yeah.
But like, damn, man, we've been so bad for so long.
That's why I resent the Spurs, and I am rejoicing in them being out of the playoffs as we speak.
Yeah.
Finally breaking the 20 or 21 year streak. I forget which, but they never had that sunset phase.
Yeah.
Because they lucked into Kawhi, or they were smart enough to get him, whatever. But they should have had that time when all 3 of their big 3 got old and got terrible, and instead they just kept winning and kept winning. It's like, teams should be cyclical. They should have at least a few stretches where they're bad. So I'm rooting for the Spurs to suck, even though they've done nothing to me, really. They're playoffs and stuff, sure, and Ori and whatever, but like, Spurs are a good organization. I don't really hate anybody on that current roster except Derek White's weird face. But
Yeah.
I'm still rooting against them. I'm not rooting against Dallas.
No.
I'm with you where I feel the same way about Doncic, where it's like the more Suns fans keep bringing him up in every single fucking game thread and every single preview and every single topic that's nothing to do with Ayton or Doncic, the more I'm starting to resent him a little bit. But that's not on him.
Yeah, that's our fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. We are essentially, about a third of the way through the season now. Just about.
Almost exactly.
I hope that we get a swing. I mean, you think back to the 2010 year, which we all hold like very fondly. Probably all of our in the top 3 seasons as fans we've ever had. I think for all of us.
Yep.
They went through a real bad stretch in the middle. They had a hot start and then they sucked for like a long time, and then at the end they got good again. So maybe maybe we'll look back and be like, man, remember when we were terrible? What's our record? 11-16.
Yeah.
And then we went on a 10-game win streak. I can hope, right?
It's probably not going to happen, but you can hope. You're damn sure allowed to hope. Yeah. I just, I think the last question we have to ask then as we wrap up is, would you revise your preseason prediction? Up, down, keep it the same. Knowing what you know to this point, which still has some unknowns, as we talked about, Ayton returning. He's played 2 games, so how's the fit going to be? What does it look like when Booker's healthy, etc.? But just knowing what you've seen to this point, higher, lower, same?
So you're good at math. If we go 500 from here on out, what does that put us?
So, we would stay 5 games below 500. So that would be, you can't be 5 games below 500. So let's say 6, which would be 37 and 43. No, 30, that's 80 games. 38 and 44. That would be 6 games under 500. 38 wins. If we played 500 ball.
So I won't really change it because I don't think I think I was the 36 one. I'm not going to be like, I'm changing it by 2.
Yeah.
If it was significant, if we were like, clearly we don't have a shot to get to 35 wins or whatever, maybe. Or if we were like, we haven't lost a game yet, so I'm definitely revising to 70 wins. Yeah.
Seems right.
I think it's about on track. Now we'll see. Maybe the culture of the Phoenix Suns catches up with us and tears us all down, and we win 5 of the next 50 games. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. I hope that our crew, when we get a close loss now, it can either bring a team together and they learn from it, or it allows them to kind of spiral. And I'm hoping that it's the former.
Yeah, I don't think I would change mine at 34 either. I think, on the one hand, I'm a little worried they're going to regress a bit. But truthfully, I'm just excited to watch this team with everybody healthy. Which, everybody's going to have injuries off and on throughout the season. Ayton's suspension is certainly weird, but even then, John Collins is going through the same thing for the Hawks, so it's not unprecedented. I'm just excited because I've enjoyed watching them to this point, so imagine what they might be able to do with, Rubio and Booker and Ayton all on the floor together. Running that offense together with Oubre slashing and cutting and making mean faces at people and doing push-ups when he gets knocked down.
See, and that's my hope is by having Ayton back, Kelly, who's played well, is going to get better because he's going to demand less attention. The defenses have to worry about our big 3, and that hopefully will open up things for Saric and Oubre and even some guys off the bench.
And Baines can play fewer minutes because he got hurt when he was playing 30 plus because he'd never really done that a whole lot.
Yeah.
So he can be back to being this really spark off the bench. And same with Kaminsky. You can bring him in for a few minutes, see if he's got it that day. If not, stick him on the bench. Because until this point, he's been starting when Baines was out. So you didn't have a choice. You had to rock whether it was good Frank or bad Frank.
Yeah.
All of it, I think, has the potential to be better. So we could improve upon this 11-16 pace. Or the wheels could fall off. And I don't think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that, other than every year prior to this one, which has trained me to think that way. I don't really see it here.
At least there, the wheels didn't fall off. They were all, the car never made it out of the lot.
Yeah.
It
was just cinder blocks where the tires were supposed to be, and the radio had been stolen, and there was no antenna, and there was no steering wheel, and the whole thing was just basically like a clump of metal.
It was just like the Flintstone cars. There were no wheels at all. It was just some guy holding the car up from the inside.
That sounds like a thing Earl Watson would do.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Time for friendship, unity. Come on. Let's all run the car together. And everybody's like, what the hell are you talking about?
I know. I just don't want Booker to get I'm done. And every day I'm expecting to read an article being Booker's asked for a trade.
I don't know why he would to this point. He's played well in the
all
system.
the right things.
Yeah.
But I still I feel like Paul George was saying all the right things, and then he was like, yeah, you know what? I do want to go play with Kawhi, so bye.
It's also about when opportunities present themselves. Now, if the Warriors traded D'Angelo Russell to the Wolves, I might start to be a little more worried.
Yeah.
I don't think they would do that since Wiggins is playing better, and I don't think the Warriors want Wiggins. That's about the only way that deal would work because they're not trading Cat, obviously. But I'm just saying if they figured out some way to do it, then I might be concerned about Booker then having the opportunity to jump to play with his friends.
If we could get, I've said this so many times, I want that 3. I don't even think it's a championship team, but it's fun and good. If you can surround them with the right pieces, Cat, D'Angelo Russell, and Booker.
Have to give up Ayton to do it. In any far-fetched scenario, there's no way we keep Ayton. And we couldn't even really afford to if we wanted to.
I was going to say, if it's a money issue, that I understand, but like, what if it's like a signing thing? They choose to come play here.
I think because of Cat's ability to ball handle and shoot the three, and we've seen Ayton can switch pretty much any pick and roll and still be an adequate defender. I think you could play them together, but I don't know how well that works in the modern NBA. I'd be worried about teams going small, and they could hold up, but God, if the Rockets roll out that lineup they like of Harden, Gordon, Westbrook, PJ Tucker, and I don't know who the hell, Daniel House or something, like 5 guards. What do you do? Punish them inside, I guess, but I mean,
that's what I'm wondering is like, are we going to see a course correction? The problem being threes are worth more than twos, but if you just get punished inside those high percentage shots, like you got to bring it with your shooting every game. And if you're the Warriors, you can do that. But
yeah, that's why it's hard to tell. The Warriors were able to play Capella off the floor, and no one else has been able to do that. Even the teams that sort of emulated their style of play and jacked a lot of threes. But the Warriors did. They could not keep Capella on the floor because they targeted him on every possession, and while Capella's not bad on switches, he wasn't good enough. I don't think that would happen to us, and it's never going to happen anyways. Like, Cat's not coming here, let alone with Ayton. But even just trying to think about it, it's like...
we got to be hopeful.
No, any deal to get Cat would have to involve Ayton. What else are we going to give up to get Cat?
No. I don't know what his contract looks like at all. But in my dream that I'm having in this fantasy, he finishes his contract. He's a free agent. And he's like, you know what? I want to go play with my boy Devin Booker in Phoenix.
Well, then you got to wait 4 years. Is Booker going to stay here 4 years? Because
probably
he's the same.
Only if Cat is like, I'm definitely going to come there and play with you.
He's the same rookie class as Cat. Yeah. And he signed an extension. So either we trade for him or we get him in 2024.
God. I probably would trade for him. It makes me feel bad to say that, but you're talking about Ayton and probably some other pieces for Cat? I mean, like, what's our hope? Our ceiling for Ayton, that he becomes the next Cat.
Kind of.
So, like, why not just get Cat? I mean, he
This is what happens, though. We go on a losing streak and we start fantasy booking, you know?
Yeah, I know. And we need to do that. We have a good team. They're fun. They seem to have the right attitude. So we'll give them a shot.
I don't think it was on the Suns board, but it was somewhere. I saw somebody put this proposed Kevin Love trade where there were like 16 players in it. And I'm like, what? I know the trade machine exists and it's fun to play with, but stop.
Yeah.
That's never happening. They're not going to be a 16-player, 3-team trade. Just stop.
I do still, like, I'm like, that's sexy. But I think it's not the 16-player one. That's stupid.
Yeah.
But the Kevin Love on the Suns. But this is like past Shaun. Because, like, 5 years ago, Kevin Love on the Suns would have been great. Well, this is not the same Kevin Love.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He's still good. Maybe top 25 still. A worthy addition. And again, for the right price, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but that just scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
But this is the problem, and this is the thing that people don't realize is you don't get stars unless you're a desirable location, you luck into a good draft that makes you desirable to other places or to other people, or like you don't. That's it. You get them by circumstance or you don't, because good players, really good players, don't come up on the trade market. They'd have to be angry and want out, like disgruntled, or they have to fall into your lap. That's it. No one's going to trade you LeBron James right now.
That was my thinking. You saying that, and I agree with that assessment, is why I'm like, maybe we take a shot with Kevin Love because the potential could be there, but it's a huge risk. I mean, huge.
Yeah, and I think they could still maybe get a max slot in 2 off seasons, not this upcoming one if they did so. But then it's like, okay, you get Love, so you're more attractive, and you can maybe bring in that last piece. Well, then you can't afford the last piece. Like, Love is the last piece.
Yeah.
And that team, just defensively especially, just scares the bejesus out of me.
Yeah.
It makes me sad. But we're not going to sign any free agents, so that might be the only way you can get better. But that's the problem, is like, we're never going to trade for Cat. Minnesota has to ride Cat until that extension's over, unless he demands out, because they either are going to be good enough with him or not. They're not, especially in Minnesota, they're not going to be able to get a player, if anywhere, like close to comparable value out of a trade for him. So they have to keep him.
Karl Anthony Towns hates the Minnesota winters. He wants to come to Phoenix in the nice weather with Booker. and Russell, like, you know, in the next state over, pretty close.
It would take like Ayton, at least 2 first-rounders with no protections, and probably like Bridges or Johnson to get them to the table on that.
Yeah.
Is that worth it? I don't know. Probably. We're gonna have to see.
But then you say, like, but then what's the ceiling? Like, do we get better? I think so, but like for what?
Yeah.
For the 5 seed?
Like we don't really have a lot of precedence for these big deals that have involved a lot of first rounders. When we have, before they instituted that rule where you can't trade back to back, it was a disaster, like in the case of Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens to Houston now after the Chris Paul trade.
Yeah.
We don't know. If you trade multiple like gap years of first round picks, you just start mortgaging your future. And the question is, would that be good enough now? And the answer is hell no. Not even for Cat.
I mean, like, what's our ceiling then? I mean, we're going like way too long. But
That's
like,
fine.
so this is the last question that I'm really interested in. Is like, what is our ceiling kind of as like a franchise? Like, what's our path to being a contender again? Because I mean, that's the goal, right? Like, that's why we do this, is we want to win a championship.
The path is you win 35 games this year. You're above 500 next year and you make the playoffs. And that positions you the season before Ayton's extension kicks in to make a play for one of a pretty loaded free agent class in 2022 or 21. In 2 seasons, because this upcoming one sucks. But in 2 seasons, there's another really big patch of free agents coming up. So you position yourself to have a talented young team. Rubio's still there for 1 more year. You have Booker's locked in, and Ayton you're going to have control over and can sign him to an extension. And you bring in one other marquee player, a Giannis, a somebody, to join that group. And then you're a title contender.
Yeah.
That's the ceiling. Everything else involves Booker and Ayton both being really good on their own, like top 20, 25 good. And then you can take in a lesser piece who's not a superstar, but a Chris Middleton type who could then push you over the hump because you have 3 rock-solid contributors. And then after that, it just all falls apart and we suck. If Booker and Ayton are both not top 30 players, and I think Booker already is, but then it doesn't matter what we do. We're not going to be a good enough destination. They're not good enough to carry us on their own, and we just fall back into this malaise of 30 wins a season.
And then hoping for the draft, which has not been
Yeah.
all that kind to us.
Where the lottery odds have gotten worse now, and then there's this new talk about these tournaments at the end of the season or something else that might further complicate things.
That'd be cool. I'm actually a fan, although it could work to punish us, unfortunately, just with where we're at. But
Yeah, I am too, but the problem is one of the scenarios talks about giving out a lottery pick to the winner of that tournament, like at the midseason, or as like a consolation prize to a team that plays hard at the end of the season, one in that 7 to 10 seed format. But teams are petrified of like a really good team stumbling into a lottery pick that ends up being the number 1 pick.
Yeah,
Even
right.
if it's like a 2% chance that hits, the idea of a really good team adding a number 1 pick scares the hell out of almost everybody in the league, and I get that. I really do. Because imagine like the Warriors adding Ayton to their team.
Are they doing the tournament like an NBA playoff style or like a March Madness style?
As I understand it, there's a midseason tournament where they're going to try and figure out some stakes to get people to care in like December. That could maybe include playoff ramifications, but probably not. And then the end of season tournament would be the 7, 8, 9, and 10 seeds in each conference. And it's like an elimination style.
Okay, yeah.
So 7 plays 8 and 9 plays 10. The loser of 9-10 is out. The winner of 7-8 is 7. And the loser of 7-8 then gets to play the winner of 9-10.
Okay.
So the 8 team is a little bit more protected. They have to lose twice. So they have a little bit more incentive to be up there. And it's, you're not guaranteed like you would have been in the old format, but you have 2 cracks at it. If you can't win that, then you don't deserve it.
I love it. I do.
I do too. I think it sounds interesting. I mean, one of the coolest things the league had was that Denver, Minnesota? I think it was Denver and Minnesota 2 years ago that had the last game of the regular season where they were both trying for the 8 seed.
Yeah.
So it was like a play-in game, and it was super exciting. All the stakes were there. It was really fascinating. I think that's what they're trying to duplicate here.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. So as we sign off here, when do we see the next time we're doing a Sunscast? When are we going to have enough? Is it worth doing it after we watch 2 games in Phoenix? in January, or probably later than that?
This is tough because at the top of the show we talked about all the things that are coming up. Star Wars. I don't think we have a full episode devoted to Jumanji, but I think we're all going to see it. Our decade list of video games,
Just 2019.
our
list.
year list of a few different pop culture things. Those are all January, and there's no show next week, as mentioned at the top, for Christmas.
So maybe February. You know what? That's good. That'll give us the team some time. We get a bigger Ayton sample size.
Yeah, trade deadline approaching.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll be active at it, but, Kevin Love.
We can talk a lot about Kevin Love being on the team and how we had to trade Booker and Ayton to make it happen.
Yeah, so it's Kevin Love and Ricky Rubio, just like they always wanted. Reuniting that Minnesota team from 2010.
Yeah, great.
But now they're both older and arguably worse. Maybe Rubio's is better than back then, but that sounds like fun.
Can't wait.
Yeah. That's the end of the episode. In between shows, find us at objectionnetwork.com, at Team Objection on Facebook and Twitter. I actually posted on both of them, so that whole joke's out of the running for the time being, I suppose. YouTube.com/Objection Network for usually 7 updates a week, but not next week for Christmas. And finally, send emails to the show to objectionnetwork@gmail.com. See you next time.